Hello and welcome to the Merseyside Junior Lawyers Division podcast. We're here for a 4-part series sponsored by the University of Law. My name is Laura Keane and I am the current Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Representative for the MGLD Committee. I am also a trainee solicitor at In-House Legal Solutions. I am joined today by Gaynor Williams, solicitor and partner at Bennet Williams Solicitors and also the current president of the Liverpool Law Society. Today, we are going to be talking about challenges facing junior lawyers and diversity within the profession. So, Gaynor, welcome. It's so lovely.
Laura.
Morning. It's so lovely to sit down with you and ask you a few questions today. I thought I'd start by asking just a general question about your route into law and how you got to where you are today.
Yes, thank you. I undertook the non-traditional route into law in that I did not go to university straight from school. I left school and got a job as a travel agent, and then I got married and had my first child, and it was only then that I got interested in law. I didn't really think I had the ability to study law or pass a law exam, and so I did a foundation in law and I passed that, and then I started the SILEX legal executive route. And that was handy for me because I could study for the SILEX exams at the same time as working full time and bringing up my children. So throughout my studies with SILEX, I had another 2 children. So I had 3 children at the same time as working and bringing my children up. So it was a good route for me. Then once I qualified as legal executive, I decided to carry on as a solicitor. And again, I studied part-time, did the graduate diploma in law, and then the LPC, all part-time, every Saturday and Sunday for the LPC while I left the children with my husband, and finally qualified as a solicitor in 2011, and then I opened my own firm a year later.
Amazing. And you've come a long way as well since starting your own firm, now holding the post of president of the Liverpool Law Society. That's obviously a very varied role. What would you say is your favourite thing about being the president of the Liverpool Law Society?
I can't say I've got one favourite thing, to be honest with you. There's so many things involved with being president. I particularly enjoy meeting the members, Liverpool Law Society members, and I've been trying to get out and about and visit some of the firms. I'm going to Fletcher's Solicitors this week to see them, and that's hugely enjoyable. I enjoy meeting other law societies. We have the Joint 5 law societies and we meet regularly. I also enjoy the lobbying side of the law society, which a lot of people don't realise that we do. We're listening to the voice of our members, any issues that are brought up. Current issues are court delays, and also the lack of legal aid for people that really need it, especially with homelessness, housing and family issues. There's legal aid deserts in the northwest. So I've enjoyed that side of it and lobbying. And with the Law Society in London, who took on board a lot of the comments from the members and the issues, they recently, you've probably heard, had a judicial review with the government, and they were successful for the criminal legal aid. And we're also still discussing the civil legal aid, which is a big issue. So that's a really enjoyable side of it.
Yeah.
We have a very busy Access to Justice committee, and we meet regularly, approximately every 2 or 3 months. And the committee consists of solicitors, Liverpool Law Society members and directors, and also service providers such as Vauxhall Law, Merseyside Law, Shelter, and any other charities that want to come along. And at those committees, we discuss a lot of issues. At the moment, the topic is homelessness. It's been reported in the Law Gazette that there's a real crisis in the Liverpool City region with homelessness. And so we had Siobhan Taylor-Ward from Vauxhall Law Centre, who's a housing solicitor, raised this issue at the Access to Justice Committee, and as a result of that, James Manouche, who's the Vice President and the Chair of the Access to Justice Committee, did a very in-depth report about the advice deserts, and that he was assisted by the service providers as well and the charities, And that report was used at the next meeting that we have with MPs, which we have quarterly. We also have meetings with local authorities to discuss various issues. And at the MPs meeting, we had a few MPs, and they listened to Siobhan give an update about the homelessness crisis and the fact that there is one solicitor who has a legal aid contract, but they're literally so busy that they're only offering a telephone line. And so it all falls down to the charities and the advice centres to try and assist people. And people are coming from outside of Liverpool City region as well, because there's no access to free legal advice, which is needed. And so it was raised with the MPs, and they listened. And we're trying to organise a roundtable meeting with MPs, the local authority, Liverpool City Council, and also the legal providers, to try and formulate a plan and think about and put something in place for these people to get help, because they're getting turned away at the moment. So the obvious solution is for the government to provide more money for legal aid, because if someone gets advice, the correct legal advice at the outset, then it's not going to affect their mental health, it's not going to affect the housing, it's not going to affect the benefits. So in the long term, the government will save money just by putting more money towards funding for the legal advice. So that would be the ideal situation, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, even if the government changes. And so what we're trying to do is organise a roundtable meeting to make a plan and put together a strategy. So that's one of the things that we do outside of meeting members and having lots of training events. We do training in all sorts of areas. The good thing about training, I didn't realise when I first joined the Law Society, is that if you have something that you're not sure about, you can say to the training director, can you do an event on this, a training event on this? For example, when COVID happened, immediately I was getting orders saying file an e-bundle, and I said, what's an e-bundle? I've never heard of one in my life, no, let alone put one together. And so I was cobbling these emails to the courts that were probably, the judge was probably pulling their hair out trying to work out what on earth I was doing. And I said to Jo, please can we put on a course for e-bundles? And she did, and it was one of the most well-attended courses during COVID, because you always think that you're the only person that's in that situation. You don't want to put your head above the parapet. But that worked well for everyone. So what I would say to anyone listening who wants some training, give us a shout if there's something you think, oh, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. Then let us know.
And I am on the ED&I committee at the Liverpool Law Society, and that's really interesting. We kind of have monthly meetings, and we always invite speakers along to listen to what other firms are doing in Liverpool and across the Merseyside region in ED&I. What other committees are in the Liverpool Law Society, and what type of work are they doing?
We also have an in-house lawyers committee that is topical at the moment with the post office scandal, because I haven't had a chance to look at the latest grilling of the post office solicitors, but I understand that there might be an issue, the fact that the lawyers were in-house working for the post office. And so, unlike me, when I've got a client, my client is in some sense employing me, but they're not my employer. And so it's easier to say to a client, look, you're going off track here. Your case isn't as great as you think, and really, we need to do this, that, and the other. Whereas if you're working in-house, it's harder, I suppose, because you're acting for your employer. You don't want to lose your job. If your employer's pushing for you to do something and they're intent on that, then, do they need more support or more for of regulators to set out for in-house lawyers? Really, what extra issues they might have to look at and consider. So that was interesting. That was last week. That came out of the committee meeting. We have the family committee, all the family lawyers in the region. We have the criminal committee. We have the non-contentious committee for the probate. That committee raised the issue of severe delays in the probate office that was affecting, obviously, distribution of wills, but not only that, they couldn't look after children because the money was all held up. And that was raised to the Law Society, who took it up with the Ministry of Justice. And they have put in more staff, one more staff member, but also overtime for the staff to try and clear the backlog in the Senior Court Costs Office. So that has been a positive as well. So we are slowly seeing results. But the more people that join the Law Society, voice the concerns, let us know what's right and what's wrong with what's going on in the legal world, then the more we can raise our voices and look after our members.
Seems like such a varied, interesting role.
So.
And since you've started your career, how have you seen the legal profession change over the years?
Well, I'm one of the dinosaurs that was practicing as a legal executive prior to the civil procedure rules in 1999. And so I've seen lots and lots of changes since then. I think one of the biggest changes and challenges for what I practice in, which is civil litigation and debt recovery, has been the changes to the cost rules, in particular to small claim hearings, where the majority of clients that I deal with, small businesses, their debts are small claims, and they do often need legal assistance. They can be quite complex matters despite the value, and yet they don't get the legal costs back. So that has been a challenge to the legal profession, having to be diverse with their costs mechanisms, and also a challenge for the clients who have really got very limited budgets. So the cost elements, and I know it also affected the personal injury side of things, because the costs were restricted in the personal injury sector, so much so that resulted in a lot of law firms having to close down because they couldn't obviously bill their clients for all the work that was required to undertake those sorts of cases. So I think that has been a big change since I started practicing, because we used to, pre-civil procedure rules, used to say to the client, you'll get at least 80% of your costs back, regardless of the value of your claim. So that is a big difference. There's always changes, regulatory changes, they're ongoing. And I think the legal sector, it's just forever moving, to be honest with you. I don't think it ever stops. There's always costs, rules, and I think the core costs are going up as well soon. It's never ending.
And working so closely with clients in the legal aid sector who sometimes may not have the fees to hire a solicitor, or who are struggling to gain back their costs, or are facing a lengthy kind of litigation battle, how do you deal as a solicitor, or how have you dealt with that throughout your career, the emotional side of handling those types of clients?
You have to be very careful, because you want to keep your clients. You don't want to upset them, but then you've got to manage their expectations. And so we've adapted by bringing in fixed costs, as a lot of law firms have. But also it's just being straight with the clients and saying that your costs are now a business expense, not something that you will automatically recover. So it's education as well for the clients, and also for the law firms, because we're adapting so quickly. Things are changing so quickly.
And over the years, do you feel that the legal profession has become more diverse? Is it becoming more diverse on the junior side as well as the senior side of the profession?
I think it is becoming more diverse. Certainly, I was looking at the SRA statistics this morning, and it's diverse in terms of the women that are practicing law. That's 53%, which is great. But I think in terms of the BAME communities, it's still dragging behind, and there's a lot more work to be done. That's 19% in 2023. So although I think firms are becoming more alive to diversity and inclusion, there's a lot more work needs to be done. They need to look into it more and take more steps to take on more diverse lawyers. Because it's good to have a good representation of what the UK public is, certainly in the legal profession as well as every other profession.
And how do you think law firms can cater for different types of students who want to go into a legal profession and start a legal career? Is there anything that law firms or anything that Bennet Williams Solicitors is doing to increase diversity, or the Liverpool Law Society? Are they doing anything that really enhances and fosters diversity within the profession?
I think a lot of firms are becoming more open and looking at diversity when they're taking on new lawyers. I think also years ago, law firms had a very strict and stringent set of rules, especially in terms when I was bringing up my children when I first started practicing. If I was 1 minute late after dropping off 3 children at school, then it was really frowned upon. But I think that you've got to have a work-life balance, and a lot of firms are more alive to that now, and it should be about your staff and not so much your profits. Of course, you want to make a profit, but you want to have a good, thriving, happy business and happy staff. And going back in my 20s when I was stressing, speeding down the motorway to get to work, had I had a firm that was a bit more sympathetic, then I would have appreciated it more and worked even harder. Because I would have been thankful that they understood that I've also got a family life outside of practicing law.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that the Junior Lawyers Division is also looking into, that students now coming into the profession are putting more emphasis onto having that work-life balance, and they're not putting as much emphasis on maybe pay or the type of work they'll be doing or the clients that they'll be working with, but working for a firm that has a great culture. And that's something that Junior Lawyers Division is definitely looking into as well with students. So aside from diversity, what do you feel are the current challenges facing future lawyers today?
I think there's always the same challenges for the younger lawyers. Finding the right firm for them with the right people, and often you need to chop and change and try out different firms before you're happy where you end up. I'd like to think that it's easier for women than it was, although I don't think it's easy enough for them to progress to partnership. I think there's still barriers for partnership for females, although there's a lot of females in law now. There is still not many partners. I also think the judiciary is getting better, not so much with BAME, but they are trying. We're seeing more females in the judiciary, but again, we need more, in my view.
This podcast is obviously sponsored very kindly by the University of Law, and lots of students will be listening into this 4-part series. What advice would you give, Gaynor, to those future lawyers wanting to succeed?
I've always found that getting to know as many people in the profession as possible. Obviously, I'm going to say by joining the Junior Lawyers Division, your local law societies, any groups, getting out there, socialising. It's always a benefit, because the person you might meet in your 20s might end up at a firm in the future that has got a vacancy that in an area that you really would love to practice in. I'm still friends with people that I trained with in my 20s, and I still go out and meet them. And it's really good to exchange stories and compare each other's work. I mean, a lot of my friends have gone in-house now as well, so it's good to hear different stories, different challenges from everyone. So I'd say just get to know everyone and
build your network.
And try and enjoy your job. I love the law. I've always loved the law, so do something that you enjoy, and then everything else, cliche, falls in.
Yeah. I always get asked by a lot of students what advice I would give them as well when I go to panel events and law fairs and careers fairs, and I always say that any experience is good experience, and just as well as networking, just try and experience as many different areas of law as possible, and don't pigeonhole yourself off to one area of law, because even though you might want to do that area of law, you have an interest in it, you never know where you might end up on qualification.
definitely.
And I think just going back to your point earlier about advice that you would give future lawyers, one of the things you mentioned was building your network. And I think the Liverpool Law Society is such a brilliant way to do that by joining these committees, going to the training sessions, going to the networking events, going to the Adler Ball. All of those different things are such a great way to get exposure to different areas of law and meet different people, not just in the Liverpool region, but from different firms as well, and who have so much experience in different areas of law.
Oh, definitely.
So thank you so much, Gaynor. It was really lovely.
Lovely to speak to you.
Yeah, it was lovely to speak to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Laura.
Thank you so much for listening to this Merseyside Junior Lawyers Division podcast that was kindly sponsored by the University of Law.